Välkommen allesammans, continuing the series of the most significant period of the whole Viking Age. It was the few decades right around the year 1000. Where we left off was when Harald Bluetooth cowardly submitted to the Holy Roman Empire and the Saxon Emperor Otto and became Christian and forced it on all of Denmark, making him a laughingstock across the whole of the northern Europe. And his once good friend, Haakon the Jarl, basically took control of Norway back and declared themselves independent from Danish rule. Norway had no king at the time, but the biggest Chad of the whole Viking Age, Haakon the Jarl, was effectively the one ruling over Norway. He won every battle he fought in and defended Norway from countless attacks from the bitter Harald Bluetooth, who was not happy about all the slanderous songs people were singing about him. Harald Bluetooth eventually died, and he was replaced on the Danish throne by his son Svein Forkbeard, but Svein kept the same attitude that he wanted Norway to submit to Danish rule. This brings us to the real subject of this video. Alliances were being created in mainland Europe between the Danes, Scanians, the Wends, the Jomsvikings, and anyone else who had a gripe with the Norwegians at the time. At King Svein's coronation, a big feast was held and chieftains from all surrounding areas showed up. They drank and they made toasts and they swore oaths, each one trying to outdo the oath of the one before. King Svein swore that he would go to England and slay the king there. All the other chieftains swore oaths that they would go to Norway and conquer that pesky Jarl Haakon. Sigvaldi the Jarl, the chief of all the Jomsvikings, also Thorkil the High, Bui Digre the Giant, all vowed to invade Norway and never flee the battle. Another chieftain, Vagn Åkesson, vowed the same, and he also vowed that he would not leave until he had killed Norwegian chieftain Thorkil Leira, and he slept with his daughter. Each man was making bigger vows than the next, and it wasn't until the next morning that they realized they had had a little bit too much to drink, and they said, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't have made all these oaths. Fair play to them though, they all decided pretty much immediately to act on this and avoid being called cowards, so they mustered up a massive force and they sailed to Norway. Haakon the Jarl's son Eirik heard of this, and he traveled up to Trondheim to warn his father Haakon. In ancient times, it was customary to send out arrows of war to summon all the chieftains of Norway for battle. So Haakon did this, and they summoned and they sailed out in pursuit of the invading Danes and their allies. The Danes and the Jomsvikings had 60 ships of the most elite warriors in the world at the time, and instead of facing Haakon like men, they raided small little villages and ran away swiftly to avoid being detected. Haakon the Jarl and his forces were basically hunting them down, checking every little fjord in the west coast of Norway and sending spies all over the country. That is until a farmer in a small village found the Danes and the Jomsvikings, and he told them, why are you fighting women and elderly and cattle when you can fight Haakon himself? He's just over there in the next fjord and he only has 2 or 3 ships with him. So then Bui and all of the Danes and Norwegians said, all right, let's go, we have them outnumbered, now we can fight. So they sailed over the Hjörungavágr where Haakon was. Haakon knew they were coming though, and he was hiding there with his 160 ships waiting for the Jomsvikings and Danes to come. They met, and the Danes said, oh shit, we were expecting to ambush them, but now it's gonna be a hell of a fight. And this is said by all accounts to be the grimmest battle of the Viking Age. Thousands dead on each side. The Danes were definitely the smaller force than the Norwegians, but the Danes were accompanied by the Jomsvikings and the Wends. They had better training, equipment, ships, better financed, and they were the most elite fighting force in the world at the time. So it was because of them that the Norwegians actually started to take heavy losses. They started to lose the battle. Also, there was a horrible storm that seemed to be damaging much more of the Norwegian ships. So they were losing the battle. This was until, in one count of this story, there was a fylgja or Valkyrie-like spirit named Thorgeld Huldabruder, who acted as a guardian angel for Haakon the Jarl and other chieftains of Trondheim and Hålogaland. The story goes that Thorgerder demanded that Haakon the Jarl sacrifice his own son to achieve the victory in the battle. After Haakon did this, Thorgerd and her sister Irpa showed up as fierce maidens, like Valkyries, spirits. They showed up on Haakon's ship, and like war goddesses, they shot hundreds of arrows coming out of their fingers and annihilating the Jomsvikings and gaining victory for the Norwegians. Any Danes or Jomsvikings who weren't killed fled. Some were taken as prisoner. Fun fact, this famous story in the scene you saw here on Vikings, where the Viking pulled his hair away and got his executioner's hands cut off, that originally happened here, right after this battle. It was a man named Sigurd Buisson who did this and impressed Eirik Håkonarsson, and he was set free along with a handful of others. But other than that, the battle was over and Norway was untouchable. The most trained and feared fighting force in the world at the time could not invade Norway, and Haakon the Jarl had earned legendary status. His fall and the fall of Norway would not come from any battle. He could never be defeated, no. The fall of Norway would happen through sneaky games and treachery and emotional and bad decisions. And that is where we continue in the next episode. Stay tuned.